Hello, everybody, and welcome to Two Geeks and One Noob, where we gather friends of similar interests and maybe not so similar and discuss, joke, learn more about, and generally have fun with geek culture. Today, we're continuing our Mount Rushmore series, and we're going to go into our favorite video game villains. Who wants to start us off?
Since both of you paused and looked at me, I guess I'll start.
I mean, I can go. I don't care. But you know what? I will go. I never go first.
No, after you, I insist.
All right, so I will start this off because I never go first. And so I'm trying to figure out which one I want to say first because I feel like my first one on the list is going to be one that at least one of you might have on your list. So I'll just say it. It's from the Arkham games, obviously Joker. The best video game villain, I think.
Yeah. So I'll agree with the caveat on why he's not on my list or my honorable mentions is he didn't get his start in video games. So I was being a little pedantic with that one.
Okay.
I agree, actually. Like, I think you made a really good pick, and that is one of the honorable mentions that I have. But I kind of had the same mindset. It was like, okay, he started with the cartoon that we all grew up with and was moved to the video game later.
Yeah. Yep. Granted, I came up with this list today, so and I'm not much of as much of a gamer as you guys are. So like, I was basing it off. I was basing it off of my more limited view of video games because I play more so the superhero games and the Marvel, yeah. Well, that's DC.
Marvel is definitively not DC.
Joker is Joker. DC.
Yes, of course, yes.
But yeah, no, I it was on my list because it's one of the more iconic villains that I've been able to play against in a video game. Yeah. So
I definitely think he deserves to be on there. I will say that, like, the final boss fight of the first Arkham was really a letdown, but that's not the Joker's fault. That was just really bad video game mechanics to finish off what was an epic game and an epic story with that character.
Yep.
And especially with the way that it was written and portrayed, like Mark Hamill stepping back into the booth for this character for the first time in a long time.
And again, that just makes it more so for me too. So
I remember watching an interview with Conroy where he was talking about seeing Hamill in the booth filming for the Joker for this game. And he was like, he's just like this nice, lovable dude when you're talking to him outside, and then he steps in the booth and he just like morphs and he's moving around as the Joker as he's speaking, and it's just like definitively Mark Hamill is Joker.
Yeah.
Period. So,
absolutely.
So yeah, I absolutely think that he deserves to be on the list for sure.
Yes.
And if you can't tell from any of our previous episodes about voiceovers and anything like that, Mark Hamill is our hero.
One
of our heroes. Yeah.
Nolan North is another one.
Yeah.
Because duh.
Troy Baker.
Oh
yeah.
Yep.
I just really discovered like who he was recently. Like I know of ones that he's played before, or people he's played before, but I never knew who he was.
You don't realize just how much he's actually in until you sit down and look up like an IMDb or something.
Yeah.
And
that's a
like,
lot of the voice actors.
And I'll say that there are 3 others that are incredible voice actors. Who one of them is actually on this list for me.
Nice.
So we'll get to him and I'll call him out when
it
comes.
Cool.
Sorry.
Well, that's my first one, so y'all can keep going.
So my first pick was from a game that I have mentioned on the podcast before, and it's Seymour from Final Fantasy X.
Okay. All right.
And so for Dan, I'll give you a little bit of context because you haven't played those games. So Seymour is one of those characters that's like, he can be annoying to some, but he just has this presence. The first time you see him in the game, you immediately think, oh, I don't trust that guy. Mm-hmm. He's creepy. I do not like this guy. And he basically proves that throughout the game constantly. And it's like part of his scheme was to force one of the main heroes in your party, Yuna, into marrying him, and kind of like using blackmail and trying to push her in that direction. And the whole point of it is with Yuna is a summoner, and summoners go through this journey to keep building up strength and get stronger to the point that they can get their final summon, and that's how they defeat the creature known as Sin. And what you find out throughout the game is that the summoner has to use one of their allies to create the final summon. So basically they're sacrificing one of the people they're closest to create the final summon to kill Sin. And then that final summon, aka their friend, is reborn as Sin later.
Ooh.
And Seymour knows that this is going on, and he's blackmailing Yuna to marry him so that he can eventually become the summon, because he wants to be Sin, because he wants to destroy the world and bring his version of peace.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And throughout the game, he just keeps popping up. And there's this key moment towards the end of the game where he just shows up. And it's like, what are you doing here? You should have been stopped. And he goes, oh, you mean by all of the Ronso? They're all gone. Ooh. And it's just like you just had this big moment with the Ronso leading up to this moment. And so it's like, he's just this villain that you just want to hate. And as soon as you see him, you know that he cannot be trusted. And he continues to just show how scummy and villainous he is throughout the game.
Nice.
Well, it's not just that he keeps showing off that, he keeps upping the ante.
Yeah. And it's like, you think he can't be more villainous. And then the next time you fight him, so you fight him a total of 4 times throughout the game. And every time he shows up, he's more villainous than the last. And you can even see that, like, if every time you fight him, his form is changed. The first time you fight him is his normal body. The second time is a more corrupted version of his body. Third time is an even more corrupted version. And then the final time is like the ultimate corruption of him, where it's like he could potentially have become Sin had he had that power of the final summon at that point. Like, he just keeps getting stronger and upping the ante. So it was just one of those villains that has stuck with me. And Final Fantasy X being one of my all-time favorite games.
Minus the Chocobo races.
That should have been on the list as my favorite top villain. That was my favorite villains, not my most hated villains. But yeah, like, he's just one of those characters that really stood out to me.
Yeah. Nice. Good explanation of that, too. Kind of helps realize it for me.
I want to try and do that better in this episode, because there's some villains in the previous episodes that I don't think I went into as much as I could have. So I'm going to try to make a note of it.
Yeah, I think for mine, like, most people will know who they are. So it's like,
yeah. And Joker is like, you don't really need to explain it. Anyone that knows literally anything about the Joker knows.
Yes. Yeah.
But anyway, David.
All right, so just to preface, this might be surprising to y'all. I did not add any of the villains from the Silent Hill franchise to this. Namely because all the villains in the Silent Hill franchise, if you really get into the lore, are representations of the main character.
Ooh.
My number one.
Yeah, okay.
Well, the point was you have to deal with your own demons.
Yeah, of course.
Anyway, my number one is Shodan, the malevolent AI from System Shock 2.
Interesting.
Yes.
Never heard of it.
Really? Okay.
No, that's good. That's good.
You'll need to provide some context.
Yes. Yep. So Shodan is, she, as prefaced, she is an AI. She maintains the space station, the Citadel, which is a space station over Earth. I'm blanking on the actual name for it right now.
The Watchtower. No,
but she's your main source of the quest line. Like, she's telling you, like, hey, I need you to go do XYZ.
Yeah.
And then eventually you pick up enough in the lore where it's like, no. Oh. She's using me as her lackey to get to her own ends. Okay, no, we're done. We're done. And then you think you get rid of her, and then you just have this moment where you're in the room, you're thinking, hey, sweet, I did it. I won. The room goes black, and every panel turns around to a screen, and all you see is Shodan looking at you saying, just when you thought you got out. It's like, oh. That was honestly probably one of my first exposures to a truly maniacal villain and a major plot twist in the game. So that's why Shodan is there. That, and also, y'all know my stance on many things technological. I'm so sorry.
Please.
So I would argue Shodan is kind of part of why I feel towards AI like I do. So yeah,
Nice. Cool. Little bit of a Skynet situation there. Not really, but I'm just throwing my knowledge out there.
no, you're good. It's a good facsimile.
That's
You're
Dan, like, I am a nerd, I swear.
I promise. Look at my room.
You don't have to prove your nerd cred, dude. You're good.
All
Frankly,
right.
I probably do because I probably butchered that explanation.
Hey, it was understandable for me, so that's all good. Okay, so yeah, my second one is Dr. Octopus from the Spider-Man PS4.
Nice.
Again,
2018 Spider-Man.
Yes, I do believe so.
Insomniac.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the same franchise as the Miles Morales one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2018. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. But yeah, so I mean, again, if anybody knows anything about Spider-Man, you know who Dr. Octopus is. But like this particular iteration, I felt like they went into a little bit more of the backstory and how he, became Dr. Octopus, and it was a mentorship situation, almost kind of like how Dr. Connors was for Spider-Man as well.
Mm-hmm.
But like every time it's something that makes them go crazy. And it's not his fault. He's trying to help the world.
Yeah.
But it's just, it ends up just making him go crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
malfunction.
For me, that version of Doc Ock had the most emotionally compelling story.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's just
Agreed.
because I was actually playing through it as opposed to just watching it on a movie screen or reading it in a comic book or something. But like,
There's so much more time to get to know him.
Right.
And, yeah.
And it's just the way that game was, it was just written so beautifully.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's not many games that get me emotional, but that one was one of those games that really just got to me.
Mm-hmm.
And like that whole back and forth, especially with the final sequence between Peter and Doc Ock at the end of the game is just like, man, like just so beautifully written.
Yeah. Yeah. Very well done.
And no discredit to Sam Raimi for Spider-Man 2, which I think that's what most people think of Dr. Octopus is that particular portrayal.
Alfred Molina.
Thank you.
Yeah, Alfred Molina, like he is the on-screen Doc Ock.
Oh, yes.
Period.
Yeah.
But this version of Doc Ock in the video game was such a good alternative.
Yeah,
like
and they fleshed out the emotional tie between the two characters so much better in the game.
Yes. Well, they had a lot more time to do it in the game. Like you said,
Right.
like you're building it up. Whereas with the movie, it's like, okay, realistically, we only have a few hours that we can really work with this. But
Exactly.
I think that definitely helps a lot with that iteration of it because it connects you to it so that much more.
Yeah.
And like you said, that emotional connection is just like, you just want him to be able to do what he wants, but then just knowing it didn't work out. Just like,
especially knowing that he was responsible for what happens after that or leading up to that. It's just like, there's just such a heavy emotional toll and it really gets to you. And it's just, again, it's just written so beautifully.
Yeah. That, and frankly, I was a little surprised how they were able to tie in Mr. Negative to that.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Not to derail. Sorry.
Honestly, though, that brings up the point that I was kind of thinking in my head, though, was that like the main villain of that game was Mr. Negative, basically. Or like not the main villain, but like the one you see the most. I feel like
that was kind of somewhat of a bait and switch ish. And it's like he was what was in the advertising leading up to it.
Yeah,
and then like we didn't know if they were going to go fully into the Doc Ock story in the game, just depending on how long the story was and whatnot with Mr. Negative, but to like start it off with Mr. Negative and then really like bring it home with Doc Ock.
Yeah. It's just one of those things where like I would have put Mr. Negative as just because he was what they put forward as the main villain. But I was like, I actually didn't care for Mr. Negative as a villain to begin with. So it was just like Dr. Octopus definitely far outshines that.
Mr. Negative doesn't really get the emotions going like Doc Ock, because it's like you kind of have an idea that he's going to be a bad guy the entire time, whereas Doc Ock, it's like you're still hoping it's like at least give me one game with him as the Doctor and not Doc Ock.
Yeah.
Like,
Also, let me play as him.
Yes.
No, they did. They did.
They
Different
did?
game though.
They did?
Yeah, Octodad.
Boo.
All right, next.
My second pick is Handsome Jack from Borderlands 2. He is one of those, like, he's maniacal, but in a goofy way. And it's like he has somewhat of a good ultimate goal in that he's wanting to protect his daughter, but the means in which he goes about it is where it becomes villainous. Like, he's just such a scummy person. And he's just so selfish and self-driven and self-motivated. It's like, but then it brings in the comedy aspect of it with the things he says. He just calls you randomly over the phone. He was like, "Hey, I've got a diamond stallion named Butt Stallion." No, I'm not kidding. It's a real horse made of diamonds. And then you hear the neigh in the background. And it's like, "Yep, there it is." I was going to call it Piss for Brands, but then I thought I would get confused every time I call you. So it's just this back and forth and just all of the one-liners and the goofy things that he says throughout. And it's he's such a fun, goofy villain, but he's also one of those villains that's okay, I'm enjoying you, but I cannot wait to kill you.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny that when you first started describing it, I was thinking, oh, it's kind of like Sandman, how it's oh yeah, he's out there for his daughter, but I didn't want any of this, and then just flies away. But anyway,
nope, he definitely goes down swinging.
Good,
nice. So, as soon as you put that one in, he was actually my number 4.
Nice,
Well played. So yeah, I have nothing to add. It's exactly that, where he's one of these characters where they make him endearing, but at the same time they make you want to absolutely demolish this man. He's been just denigrating you the entire storyline.
Yeah,
he's one of those villains you want to see on the screen more often, only because it gives you that much more motivation to kill him at the end.
Yes.
But it's in a fun way.
Yeah.
That whole Piss for Brains interaction, and then another time later. He was just so I called in this group of soldiers and one of them ate the other. Just straight up ate him.
Yeah. He's kind of the quintessential example of loving to hate a character.
yeah.
So
I feel like that makes a good villain in a video game too. Is loving to hate them, which means you want to play it more.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, and that I think
you
that
want
makes
to
it.
see the villain's demise all the more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah. So I'll shift around my list.
I told you I was going in release order. That
Yep.
you chose not to do that.
You're right. You're right.
Well, I guess that takes up your turn. I'll go to my next one then. So this is going way, way back to beginning of PlayStation releases. Dr. Neo Cortex from Crash Bandicoot.
Oh,
Yeah, original PlayStation villain. Honestly, I don't know much of the storyline. I just remember it being amazing to play at the time because it was it wasn't my first video game, but it was the first real video game I could play, and I was just I love it.
So I'll need a little bit more context because I actually never got the chance to play the Crash Bandicoot games.
Okay,
nice.
So Crash Bandicoot, it's exactly what it sounds like. He's a bandicoot, a marsupial, but he just goes around breaking open boxes and eating Wampa fruit, and he has a little mat, not a kabuki mask, but
clips of him and stuff. So it's I know he's got the bird or whatever on his shoulder.
No, that's
it's
Banjo.
Oh, Banjo,
yeah. It's a mask. It's
mask,
a
that's right. Yeah.
It's a tribal mask.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a witch doctor.
But Neo Cortex was I can't remember if he was a time traveler or something, but he was definitely technologically advanced and stuff, and he was going after the crystals that were on this island, and honestly, like I said, I can't remember the full storyline, but it was just
so it's kind of in the same vein as Dr. Eggman and Sonic.
Yeah, basically.
Bit,
yeah. It was the updated version of Sonic the Hedgehog, I feel like.
Okay.
That tracks.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's almost exactly like it. But he had all his minions that all had to do with like, I want to say they were there. One of them was entropy, so it was entropy, which is like help me out here, David. What's entropy?
Entropy is the fact that everything reverts back to chaos.
Right. Okay. So like it all had to do with like these puns about
physics or
physics.
psychology.
Yeah, exactly. So I can't remember what some of the other villains were,
it's
but
been years since I played.
Yeah. But yeah, entropy and neocortex and like I know my brother's gonna be like kicking me for not remembering these, but yeah, no, anyway, so it's just fun. Like there's all these levels where like you're running backwards from a stone that is rolling after you, or a bear, like a polar bear or something, and you can ride a little baby polar bear running away from it and stuff.
Yeah, okay. But, you remember the tail end of Uncharted 4 where you're playing as Nate and Ellie's daughter, and she's trying to beat her dad's time on the PlayStation.
Oh yeah,
that's that scene.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
But again, I really can't remember much of the storyline or the motivation that Neocortex had. I just remember it being really fun. So
fair enough. So my third pick is Voss from Far Cry 3. And he was one of those villains that's like, he died too early in the game because they killed him off at like the halfway point, and they're like, oh, just kidding, here's a whole other island with another villain that you have absolutely no attachment to. And I was just like, but why though? He was such a good villain. And it's like this is like, he's just this crazy guy, and like the whole game starts with him just killing your brother.
Do you know the definition of insanity?
It's like the game starts with him killing your brother in front of you. And then he's just standing there with a gun and throws his arms on and goes, what are you doing? Run. Get as far as you can. Run. And it's just like, it immediately throws you into the panic, and you have to run, and you hear the dogs running after you barking, and he's like, you're getting shot at. And it's like, it starts off in this like intense moment. And as you go through the game, every time you interact with him, he just sits down and does this like monologue. But the way that like the voice actor delivers it is so chilling and so well done. And it's just like that moment that David alluded to. He's sitting at the top of this cavern with you tied up, and he's talking to you. He's like, do you know what the definition of insanity is? It's doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. I feel like that's happening to me because I'm pretty sure I've killed you like 4 times, and yet here you are sitting in front of me. And he's just kind of going back and forth, and then he gets right up in your face and goes, do you know what the definition of insanity is? And grabs you and just throws you off the cliff, and you're tied to the cinder block that's gonna, and there's water down there where at the bottom of the cliff that you're thrown off of, and it's just this another intense moment, and it's just like just the delivery and the way that he speaks and said, like, oh dude, it's just so well done.
I think another thing that actually really makes a villain in a video game is the voice acting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like if there's not a good voice actor playing a villain, just don't even bother. Like,
I mean, Voss was done so well that he kind of like took off. And there's people like, there's this one guy on YouTube that was just uploading videos, and he was dressing and exactly like Voss was in the game, and would speak like him, and was just doing these like maniacal things. And it was just, it really just added to it, even though it wasn't an official part of the lore. It wasn't an official release from the studio or anything, but it was done so well that he just had this connection with all of the fans. And he was like this kind of like what we were saying with Handsome Jack. It was like, is this villain that you love to hate, and you wanted to get the fight. And it was, a lot of people were disappointed that you do take him out so early in the game, because after that it's like, well, I don't feel like I have the emotional connection to this game anymore. But Voss was such a good villain that I wanted to play the game, and I've gone back and played the game multiple times because of it. And arguably Voss is what has made the Far Cry series what it is now. Because the first 2 games weren't bad, but they really didn't get a big following. There was kind of more of a cult following. And then when the trailers came out and just started showing Voss, like the interest for Far Cry 3 went from middle level to just top tier. Like everyone was like, who is that? Who is that villain?
Yeah.
Yep.
And so he's just one of those villains that like really gets your attention.
And I will say, I almost put Pagan Min on here.
Pagan Min is a very close second.
Yeah.
My issue, the only complaint I have with Voss is that the studio that makes the Far Cry games has tried to repeat Voss in every game they've done since then.
Yep.
And so it's like Pagan Min was in Far Cry 4, and he was a really good villain, and he still had that same level of villainy and maniacalness and whatnot, but he didn't quite have the same connection that Voss did.
Yeah.
He was still a very good villain, and
He was, but the reason I was going to put him in over Voss was because he's more grounded, but then decided for a completely different direction. We'll get to that later. Sorry.
So, no, you're good. But that's my one complaint with Voss is that they've tried to repeat that, and it's like they got fairly close with 4, and it was a good villain. 5 just wasn't good.
Jeremiah Seed was not.
They really
great.
lost a lot of that magic, and 6 was much better because it was voiced and motion captured by Giancarlo Esposito. So like obviously it's going to be good.
You and I are not the same.
But it's still not quite that level that Voss reached.
Yeah.
And it's just again, one of those villains that really stands out.
Nice.
Yep.
Cool.
So, moving down to my number 2. Moving down to my number 3 now is Frank Fontaine, or Atlas from BioShock. So the entire storyline. This is now granted. I felt I had to put him right after Shodan because he both villains from BioShock were based on different aspects of Shodan.
Okay.
In fact, the entire game was based on System Shock 2, or at least the concept thereof. They just threw in other literary references, which I will leave nameless because most people start tuning out when that author is mentioned. But yeah. So Frank Fontaine, or as you first meet him, Atlas, is voiced by Cole Meany from Star Trek and Gangs in New York, and
is that
Tom Cruise? Shoot, what was the name of that movie? Irish immigrant comes over, becomes a boxer.
Far and Away.
Far and Away.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good grief.
Yeah, so he's the chief engineer guy, right?
Yeah.
From Star Trek. Okay.
Yep.
Curly hair.
Yep.
Irish.
Yep. The good Irishman. Anyway.
He was one of my favorites from Star Trek. But anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, he's also a very well established voice actor as well.
Nice.
So he's one of the guys that I was gonna call out earlier. Anyway. So you hear that iconic voice, and of course, me being me, it's like, oh, yeah, okay. Heritage Countryman. Awesome. But the whole time, he's helping you conspire with other denizens, with the little sisters and the big daddies, the Mr. Bubbles, and trying to help you take down the evil Andrew Ryan. And then, as you're standing there in front of Andrew Ryan, who is defenseless, you have... I believe it's like a 9-iron or something. It's some
golf club.
It's some massive weighted golf club.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And then you just hear, "Have you not figured it out yet? Really? Would you kindly take out Andrew Ryan?" And just everything in the game, including like the way that the controls are handled, you have no choice now but to take out Andrew Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't just that they lead you on the whole time that this character is your friend, much like Shodan earlier, but it's the fact that they even work the controls into it, where it's this, no, you really have to do what he says. Your character is pre-programmed to respond to that phrase. Would you kindly?
Yeah, because they had been using the "would you kindly" so much throughout the game that as a normal player, you don't really think anything of it. And then at the end, when they dropped that big reveal, it was just like, that was just mental manipulation, preconditioning me this entire time to get to this moment. Dang. So that you could just drop that phrase.
Right. And I was debating putting in the Doctor, who I am totally blanking on his name right now, except for the fact that in BioShock 2, it turns out he was the good guy trying to destroy that research that led to your character being preconditioned to it. So
Not David Tennant, right?
no.
Okay. Just making sure, because that's the only Doctor Who I know.
Oh. I hurt inside for that one. That was good though. That was very good. Well done. So yeah, Frank Fontaine.
Well, for my my last one, again, reaching way back to the same era as Crash Bandicoot, Spyro,
I'm blanking.
Ripto.
That was it.
Ripto's Rage,
Man,
baby.
okay, that one's a blast into the nostalgia there.
Oh,
Yep. Honestly, could not tell you what it looks like. Could not tell you what the story was. Could not tell you nothing. It was just fun.
Yeah. Well, that's like a straight childhood pick there. Like,
absolutely.
yeah, that's one of those moments where as soon as you had it, I had that. Oh shoot, who was the connoisseur in Ratatouille? Ego. Anton Ego. I had an Anton Ego moment. The moment you said it, it's like, oh wow.
Yeah.
Well, I immediately had the sound of the butterfly that you get when you're zipping around.
Yes.
Like that, I had that audio cue come back to mind. I was like, oh no.
See, all I have in my head is and just that short little fire burst.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, man. Man, that's a throwback. I like that pick. Like, I just remember spending so much time playing Spyro back in the day.
So many hours.
And now I just feel guilty for not putting Ganon on here.
That's an honorable mention. Don't worry.
Oh yeah.
Honestly, my honorable mentions are like zip. I have nothing.
Really?
Okay.
He did finish his list today. So.
True.
Yeah, I just finished my list today, and again, I'm not much of a gamer outside of like specific games that I like. Okay, that one's cool. I'll play that one.
Yeah, you can't really say your favorite villain is the Squeakers from Fortnite. Like,
Right. Yeah. or like even like I don't even know who the villain in Hogwarts is yet. So like, and I'm sure it's out there somewhere, but like I just don't know yet.
Tell you
If
in
you-
the beginning.
it's in the very beginning, so yeah, you've seen him.
I'm sure, but I just don't like.
Okay.
I wasn't paying attention or whatever. But
there's Rookwood, and then there's I'm
oh,
blanking on
yeah.
on the goblin's name.
Ranrock. Ronrock.
Yeah.
Ranrock.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, I do know who that is, but I can't really say it's a favorite yet because I've only spent a couple of hours playing. So.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah, no, like there's very few specific villains that I know. So it's just like I play the games, I have fun playing the games, but I don't get into the lore behind it too much. So
That's fair. Yeah. Yeah, I'm on a very different side of that spectrum.
Yeah.
So
absolutely, and I applaud you for it. Not that many people would, but I do.
that's all that matters.
Oh.
So my final pick, I think this is the one I told you guys I don't think you'll guess, but it won't surprise you once you hear it.
Okay.
My final pick is Trilla from Jedi Fallen Order.
Oh, okay.
Or also known as the second sister
Yeah.
for the
Yep.
Inquisitors. And so she is on a very different spectrum than the other villains I picked because she is one that really gets that sympathy, specifically at the end. Like leading up to that point, she's saying some things, and there's always that question of like, was what she was saying true? Was she trying to manipulate you to join her? Was she just trying to get you to turn against your friends? Like, what was there actually truth to what she was saying? And then at the end, when they really just hammer the nail down and show this, like, no, she was actually being truthful. This is the proof. Her former Jedi master, your mentor, has confessed to you this, like, yeah, no, that actually happened.
Yeah.
What she said is true. That's why I myself do not use the Force anymore. It's like, it's just such a like compelling story, and she's such a good character that a lot of fans of this game actually have gone as far to say that they think she should have been the main character of the game, not Cal, because of how well written she was.
Oh, wow.
And she, for me, was good enough that I would love a prequel to the game that focuses solely on her. and what happened leading up to Order 66 and after that.
Yeah.
Because
Her
she's
being
just
recruited as an Inquisitor.
yeah, well, you're like going through like that conditioning and being made into an Inquisitor because she was less recruited and more voluntold by the Empire.
Yeah, true.
It was just she was so well written. She was really an enjoyable villain, one that really gets the sympathy and kind of like tugs at the heartstrings. And then at the end, when there's just that moment where she realizes like everything she's done, and a certain character shows up. I won't say it because you haven't finished the game, so I'm not going to spoil it. But a character shows up, and even her goes into full panic mode, and she just like has this look on her face, and she just like looks at you and is like, "Run!"
Yeah, I think I might have seen that scene already. Was it Vader?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So it's like as soon as like you hear that force effect, and she freezes, and she's like, "You need to get out of here now," and you just see the genuine fear on her face, and it's just like. That was a moment where it's like I was already feeling sympathy for her after like everything leading up to that, but in that moment I was like, no.
And that's how you feel anytime Vader walks into a room.
Yeah, it's just man, she's just such a good villain, and like again, like if they made a prequel game that focused on her, I wouldn't hesitate to buy it. Like I would go out and pre-order it the day they announced it. Like,
so in other words, EA, if you want a shot at winning that exclusive license back,
and that's part of why I'm
let Caleb buy it.
just make good games.
Well, yeah,
that's part of why I'm so excited for the Jedi Survivor. Is like I don't think we're gonna get more backstory on Trilla, but the villain that they've already shown and the writing abilities that studio has shown is like, okay, we got this villain when you had pretty bare bones budget and EA didn't really believe in the game. Let's see what you can do with the villain when you have more money, more time, more people working on it. Have fun. Please give me something I am going to enjoy.
I will say the Star Wars Jedi Survivor series is definitely a good balm to know that Respawn is working on that as opposed to Titanfall 3. So
I actually had fun with Titanfall.
Oh yeah, great series.
So yeah, that was my final pick. I had to go. I mean, as is tradition with me, I had to pick a Star Wars character. It's going to be tricky when we get to the anime because there's not really a legitimate anime for Star Wars. So
technically,
there's cartoon, and then there's
there is a legitimate anime.
The Visions or Star Wars.
Yeah,
Star Wars Visions, but it's like those were short stories. We don't get the same development and whatnot with the characters. So.
Might be a little off topic, but I would argue that it's more in the same sense that Samurai Jack had story development, not in the sense that typical Star Wars stories.
But that was several seasons and not a single episode.
Point being, it's all visual storytelling, not.
Yeah, but again, it's still more time.
True. You know,
more time equals more development.
Sometimes.
Definitely.
I don't know where that voice came from.
Definitely.
Anyway,
numero 3-4 for you.
Yeah, right,
David.
What can I say except you're welcome?
Maniacal laugh.
I had forgot about that one. Oh man! All right, so my final pick is a pretty sharp departure, with the exception to Handsome Jack, and even still kind of a sharp departure there too. Because this villain is not... He's pointedly not competent. It's Dr. Lobato from Psychonauts.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, yeah.
And honestly...
That's an interesting pick, but I like it.
Yeah. To an extent, I figure it's one of those that people would say, yeah, no, that fits. Okay, that would fit for you.
That's
so
another one that I wouldn't have guessed, but as soon as I heard it, I was just kind of processed for a second. I was like, yeah, no, that works.
So is it basically the mega mind of video games?
By the name and by the name of the game, you would imagine so. Dr. Lobato is a dentist.
Okay.
And he literally takes the brain out of the camps, out of the campers. That is his entire plot point.
Does he do it through the mouth?
Ish.
Like cuts it from like there and just like scoops or something. I don't know.
So if you're familiar with the game, it's a pointedly very childish looking game. It's pointedly very imaginative,
right?
And they stylize it to look vaguely like it's some kid's drawing come to life. So it's not
psycho,
and that's actually like a big part of it. Like you actually do various drawing things to get through some of the levels. So it's like
it's collecting figments. Yep. So it's pointedly not gory, except for the fact that this character is taking brains, and the two moments that lead up to you discovering the big bad of the storyline is right at the beginning. You're sucked into basic braining with, I'm forgetting the character's name, the sergeant, the drill instructor.
I don't remember.
And one of the characters just makes the comment to the main character, I don't know where we are, but it looks like a dentist's office. It's this blatant foreshadowing, and you're just thinking it's this one-off line.
Yeah.
Because, no, that's too bizarre even for what I'm seeing right now.
So, all right. So to me, that kind of makes it sound like it was some kid's nightmare of like the night before he goes to the dentist.
Yes.
And is like... Yeah.
Honestly, yeah,
that is perfect. That is more perfect than you realize.
He's gonna cut my brains out.
That is far more perfect than you realize. But the second point that really solidifies them for me is, so the game's over 20 years old. I don't think anyone's going to care if I spoil it. Raz, the main character,
past that time frame.
Oh, exactly. It's on the same level as Sixth Sense at this point. If you haven't played it, that's your fault. Go play it. It's fun. It's probably free somewhere.
Anything legally. After 5 years. Anything after 5 years.
10.
Yeah, I'd say 5.
Yeah, fine, whatever. Anyway, so
in fact, even if you've seen Endgame, or if you haven't seen Endgame, we're gonna spoil it.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No. Go ahead. By all means.
All the people come back. Snap. Oh, snap. Anyway,
so
somebody should have said that in that movie.
For the listeners, we are in a mood today. So
yes, we are. So anyway, the second scene is set up where Raz, the main character, who
Raz, sorry, what?
That actually is one of the many comments made about him. So Raz and his family are a bunch of carnies who were long ago cursed by an old gypsy woman, where all of them will die in the water. So he thinks he literally cannot go in the water or he will die.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how he has interpreted the warnings from his parents.
Okay.
So he goes up to the shorefront at this summer camp for psychedelic students. That fits too. Psychokinetic students. There we go. That's the more accurate one.
Psychedelic.
No. It
Whoa,
fits.
man, dude.
It fits. And one of the few kids that he gets along with, Dugan, walks out of the water. Oh my gosh, Dugan, are you okay? TV. Dugan looks through his ears, and there's nothing. There's literally nothing. Like, he just sees straight through his head, looking through his ears. It's one of those... If you look at the presentation style of the game, you're just going to sit there like, no, that tracks. That tracks. And it's genuinely one of those things where you hear people joking about it, but you never think it'd be something that would be that childishly cute, for lack of a better... Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay. But then Dr. Lobato is pointedly, like, completely worthless as a villain. It's just the fact that he is just that pointedly worthless as a villain that makes him so endearing to you.
Yeah. So it's the one that you love to hate.
Maybe.
No.
Sorry, I'm honestly having a hard time following that right now.
Well, it's one of those ones that's just like you hate him, but he's not really that hateable because he's not that good at what he does, and
they sort of kind of rehabilitate him to an extent, and then during the torture sequence, torture, very much air quotes, sequence in the second one. Honestly, no, it's not a torture statement. It's an interrogation. It's a mental interrogation, and you're basically going through his mind.
So he puts him in a room with a guitar and says,
basically. But it's the entry scene to the second game where that kind of solidifies it, where you honestly start to develop real sympathy for the character. Like, oh, no one believed in you to begin with. That's why you're doing something entirely different from what you actually trained to do. Why? Dude, no, stop. Just no. So it's just one of those moments where you're just sitting there like, who came up with this? And
it's the psychedelics.
Yes. But that game has always been very endearing to me, and Dr. Lobato is seriously part of it, and now that I'm mentioning it, I cannot hit this topic without talking about the Milkman conspiracy level. It is iconic, it's perfect, and oddly has almost nothing to do with the main villain, which just goes further to emphasize how useless of ability really is. So yeah, Dr. Lobato is my number 4.
See, every time you say his name, all I can think is Domo arigato, Dr. Lobato.
I'd rather get a lobotomy than hear that song again. Kidding.
All right. Well, sounds like we're about ready to get into our honorable mentions.
Yep. And so I did a little bit of phoning a friend for this one, reached out to a couple friends. And so 2 honorable mentions.
Can I ask the audience? Sorry, go ahead.
It's Caleb.
Sure. Of course, we've got to mention Ganon. Like, that's an obvious honorable mention there. Like, we can't leave off Ganon. Like, he's been the core villain of the Legend of Zelda series from the beginning. Yeah. So, like, you can't not mention Ganon. He's iconic. Bowser is another really iconic villain.
Of course.
These are like, they're
K. Rool, DDD.
Donkey Kong.
DDD. OG.
Come on, Donkey Kong.
OG Donkey Kong.
Yeah, you're right. He was a villain. Okay.
OG Donkey Kong, yeah. There's so many classic ones, but the ones that I got from my friends, Tyler, I'm just going to read off his wording because he explained it too well for me to not just read off his exact wording. So his first one was Yu Yevon from Final Fantasy X, because he is my homeboy. He obviously he's right there with me on Final Fantasy X. And so he went with Yu Yevon, and this is what he wrote. Yevon was a bit more subtle, but he did organize an entire religion and relied on constant sacrifice from the people in order to maintain some sort of status quo under extreme obedience and penance. And that's what I was speaking on earlier with Sin and the whole final summoning and everything. He has this whole religion built off of him taking down this creature, quote unquote.
You need the video game version of David Koresh?
And so yeah, it's just like it's just basically just this big ego trip just to get people to obey what he felt was right. The next one he picked was Comstock from BioShock Infinite, and here's what he wrote for that. Comstock was a hyper-nationalist and xenophobic piece of crap that believed America wasn't America enough and split his ideologies literally into the sky, where people could ascend to his ideals and make Columbia the ideal city in the sky at any cost. As long as you were part of his organization and his worships and foundations, the founding fathers, and did your job without question, you would be welcomed into the holy city of Columbia.
And I'm just shuddering at the idea of 10 soldiers again.
Yeah. It's just like, he was just this, and it's also this idea that's like, literally anyone could become the hero or the villain based on the circumstance. Mm-hmm. And the whole time you're playing through BioShock Infinite, you get to the end thinking, I'm taking out Comstock, this terrible person, just to find out you are Comstock. You have been playing as a younger version of Comstock the whole time, and you look through this portal into all of these alternate realities and see that literally no matter what you do, you always become that garbage person that is Comstock.
Yes. Yeah. So Comstock is a awesome one, but trying to make sense of the Beyond the Sea storyline is insane.
Yeah. Dang. And it's this crazy long story that like when you get to the end of it and you see that reveal, you're just sitting there like, but what? No, I stopped the villain. How am I the villain?
Yeah. So it's basically Looper in video game form with better writing.
Yeah,
basically.
That makes sense.
And his next pick was Odin from God of War Ragnarok. And here's what he wrote about Odin. Odin believes himself to be the only one clever enough and powerful enough to be able to save the 9 realms from ultimate destruction. He also had an aching need to find out if there was anything higher than himself, if there was a calling that he could do other than be immortal. If there was a calling that he could do other than be immortal and engage in hijinks, he wanted to find deeper meaning for even the gods at the cost of literally anyone but himself. And you even see that in the game where he is mad at Thor and just straight up kills him. It's just like, you didn't obey me. You didn't do what I told you to do. You are a destroyer and nothing more. You do what I say. I am the leader.
Huh. Dang.
So he's just this like absolute monster and is like will literally sacrifice anything and everything because nothing matters to him that is not him.
Yeah.
Yep. So it's basically a more egocentric version of actual Norse mythology.
Yeah.
I would say it's a far shot from Marvel too.
Oh yeah.
Well, okay, credit to Marvel. You heard it here. Credit to Marvel. They actually did pay attention to the sagas when actually writing the original Thor storylines.
Yeah.
So I've got a few more mentions here from some friends. So a friend from work also gave me Andrew Ryan, so got a good one there. He picked Darth Malak from Knights of the Old Republic, which is fantastic villain. It's kind of a classic
from the second one, right?
From the first one.
Who am I thinking of then?
The second one had Traya and Nihilus and
I'm thinking Nihilus.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
So Malak was a Jedi knight that was working with Revan throughout KOTOR and like trying to save the galaxy, and he and Revan both start dabbling in the dark side of the Force, kind of start to become corrupted and controlled by the dark side, and Malak does what Siths do, betrayed his master. And that was his betrayal is what ultimately helped the Jedi defeat and capture Revan, because he was seriously wounded by Bastila Shan leading the Jedi after him, and B, Malak turning on him and leaving him to die. And then he is the overarching villain throughout the entirety of KOTOR. And it's like the whole time you're playing as Revan, who has lost all of his memories, doesn't remember anything that happened, like the betrayal, the fact that Bastila, someone on his party, was the one that was like hunting him down with intent to kill. Like there's just this whole build up to Malak, who is an awesome villain and an awesome design, by the way.
All right. So you just said something that I did not realize, is that Revan was actually the main character of a video game. I did not realize that. I thought you just knew him from other like lore.
No. He's from the video games.
And you said that they're going to be making...
There's supposed to be a remake of KOTOR.
A remake?
Not much information about it yet.
Okay,
but
all right. Then I will definitely check that out.
Apparently the Switch version is going to be a little bit wonky. Or
Switch version?
I think that's just kind of games being ported to Switch, honestly.
Well, there's been some good ones.
Some good ones, yes. But
anyway, digress.
The next one, there's 2 Mass Effect ones here. It was Sovereign from Mass Effect 1 and the Elusive Man from Mass Effect 2.
Oh.
Yeah. So Sovereign, this is going to be a lot. So I'm not going to go all the way into it because we just frankly don't have the time to go into all of it. Sovereign, the short of it is he is one of the Reapers, which is the main overarching villain of the entire Mass Effect trilogy.
Okay.
And the Reapers are basically indestructible. And he is this Reaper that comes into our galaxy and uses his knowledge and whatnot to manipulate one of the other characters that is supposed to be the villain in the first Mass Effect. And he kind of like basically brainwashes him to the point that I'm forgetting the name of that villain from the first.
I rushed through it.
He's a Turian. I don't remember his name. Shoot. Because he was a good villain. But anyway, so he like basically brainwashes him to the point where he like thinks that what he's doing is actually saving the universe. And the whole goal of the Reapers is basically Thanos. They wipe out the species that they deem unworthy of surviving and leave the other species to evolve and potentially thrive or die on their own.
Yeah.
And so they go through every like century, wipe out the species that they feel need to be wiped out, and restart the galaxy. And they just keep cycling through this pattern.
Yeah.
And so that's like what Sovereign has set up is trying to do. So it's this big buildup, and like when you kill him, you're thinking, okay, we're good, everything's safe, we're fine. And then you get into the second game, and your main character is straight up killed in the opening cutscene of the second game, and you find out it's like, oh, that was just one of the Reapers. We needed all of the militaries to kill him, just him. How are we going to fight an army of these things? And then the elusive man he's a human that's a part of a different organization that is trying to find a way to help the galaxy survive. But he is such, for lack of a better word, racist, because he hates all of the other alien races. He literally only cares about the betterment of the human race.
Mm.
And so it's like all of the other races, he's like, that's fine. If they die, they die. As long as humans survive, I don't care. And so he's really this just like terrible garbage person that is willing to kind of like what I was saying with Odin, is just he's willing to sacrifice anyone if it gets him the goal that he thinks is right.
Yeah.
And he's a really good villain, and he's like plays a big role in both 2 and 3. He's not really a villain in 2. He's more of a like background antagonist that you don't really directly interact with outside of video conversations and whatnot. But yeah, he's just this overarching villain, and ends up playing a really big role in the final sequence of the third game, tying in all of the Reapers that were connected to Sovereign. And it's just this big, overarching, beautiful story that's just so friggin' good.
And take a breath.
There's so much more that I could explain, but we are almost at an hour, and we just don't have the time. I could do an hour of just talking about Mass Effect.
Yeah. All right, so I do have one honorable mention, and it's going to be crazy, but so it's going to be the Patriots from Madden 99. They killed us in the killed us Buffalo Bills.
I would not have guessed that. Even jokingly, I would not have guessed that.
My brother and I played Madden all the time when we were kids. So.
Nice.
I just thought it'd be funny to say.
And
it was.
My last honorable mention, a game that I love, Jack 3, Count Veigar. He was the main villain that was trying to he was the reason that your character got exiled into the desert and was left for dead. He's the reason that you were experimented on and became not even human, quote unquote, anymore. He's the reason. He was trying to stop these creatures from coming from space, but as time goes on, it turns out it's you know what? No, bring them in. I'll just control them and do what I want anyway. And so, again, there's a lot to it. I'm not going to go into it, but he's another good one that I had to throw in there.
Nice.
Yep. So I've got a couple myself. Some you've already mentioned. Basically, anyone from Nintendo. But one of the others that stand out for me, just because it was one of the first games I actually got to play, Mecha Hitler from Wolfenstein 3D. Just because it's one of those things that people joke about constantly, and I was born at that point where I'm not really sure which came first, if it was the jokes or that.
Yeah.
But getting to the 9th level of Wolfenstein 3D for the first time, and then you just open the door and you hear this very roboticized Guten Tag. It's oh.
It's just that initial reaction is surely they didn't. Oh no, they did.
Exactly. Oh yeah. So that's definitely one of my honorable mentions. As pathetic as that is. And I mentioned it earlier, but I'd be remiss considering what a fan of the series I am. And granted, it's become kind of a bastardization of the character now, but Pyramid Head from Silent Hill, Silent Hill 2, who, again, just to set it straight, because it's overused in the films, hint, hint, hint. He is a motif that does not belong in the films at all, because James is not there. He is all the dark aspects of James magnified into one being.
Okay.
And they did a good job, I felt, in Silent Hill 2 to portray him as that.
Yeah.
And just like, no, he's every base instinct that James has.
Okay.
And just no inhibition to control it whatsoever. He's just base instinct. He is the definitive personification of lizard brain.
Huh.
Trapped in his own head.
Dang.
And then and say what you will about Homecoming, they did a good job of explaining, arguably a little heavy-handed, but they did a good job of pointing out, like, no, that's who this character is. There can be multiple, because James' baser instincts are pulled multiple ways. Anyway, yeah. So I digress.
Nice. I will say that I have one honorable mention that is actually kind of more serious, but kind of a joke as well, because it's not a main villain and it's not really one single person. But it's something that got me into PlayStation VR, or VR in general, is the orc hordes and dragons and stuff from Elven Assassin.
Yes.
Such a fun game. I love it. I wish I could play it on PlayStation. Come on, PlayStation, put it on PlayStation Plus.
I wish the developers would finally finish it.
But yeah, it's one of my favorite VR games, and I can't even play it on my game, or on my system. I mean, but yeah,
nice.
But other than that, I mean, I think that about wraps it up for this episode.
So we hope everyone is enjoying the Mount Rushmore series. We've got a few other ones planned out. The next Rushmore one we're going to do is going to be the video game heroes, just continuing on the trend. And then we've got a few other categories that we want to play around with. But hope you're enjoying it. And we would love to see any feedback. So if you've got us on social media, comment some of your favorite video game villains. And other than that, yeah, thanks for listening.
Bye.